Start.
Hello, welcome to the Drinking Thoughts Podcast. My name is CJ Sketch. Welcome back to the Drinking Thoughts Podcast. I've said that 3 times. Drinking Thoughts Podcast. Shut the fuck up. We're here with my good friend and compatriot, not Tom. Fuck Tom. He's out the house, so I can say that without worrying about getting hit. Fuck Tom. Steve's here, ladies and gentlemen. Steve, what are you drinking tonight?
How's it going? I am drinking Stella Artois. I love Tom, but
fuck Tom.
Also been drinking whiskey, so we've been drinking. I've been drinking.
We've been drinking. I've been drinking some whiskey. I'm drinking Mountain Dew now.
I think the topic.
Give me the time, Steve.
The time. 2:53.
2:53.
Going on 3 o'clock in the morning.
All right, let's do this.
The topic I'd like to bring up is something we talked about before the microphone was live. Political correctness and how it is destroying progressive conversation in America. I'm not going to be that kind of...
You don't have to get this.
Right.
You're getting real up and go to the edge of the couch.
No. It's something that I think there's a place... Alright, so let's have a more casual conversation about this. Alright, how do you feel?
Yeah, maybe don't start... You start at the edge of the couch. I feel there is a place in America. Your volume's already getting up high. Alright. R.I.P. headphone users. Okay, what do I feel?
Go ahead.
Which subject? Just PC in general, or
PC in
certain
general?
infactions? Infactions? Is that?
I think
certain factions. Sorry.
No, I think there's a place in conversation for political correctness. You have to be respectful. Don't be a dick. Don't go using words like nigger, faggot, Jew. But
real offensive term, Jew.
No, well, you know, be respectful.
Republican, yeah.
Right. Don't use those words on an offensive because
since you asked me before you go about your shit.
All right. Go ahead.
Harp on this a bit. Here's the deal. All right, I believe that every man is born with the righteousness of a white man. So. Here's the thing.
Go back to Texas.
See, that's offensive. Anyways, I think in personal discussion, in open media discussions such as this podcast, the political correctness is not necessarily irrelevant, but should not be a crutch in the discussion. It should not be thrown to the wayside, but you shouldn't feel the need to partake in political correctness. I think... in certain media, there is placement for it.
Yes.
The news, for instance, which is watched by there's but it shouldn't inhibit information being shared or provided. You shouldn't not cover a story because perhaps someone in an interview said the N-word. Or something along those lines. I think what you're going to harp on in terms of context is absolutely relevant. And that's sort of where my stance.
I agree. I think when you have to quantify...
I also think black people are second-class citizens.
All right.
Second class. Well, I think that their rights should be stripped from them, as should their clothes.
Spitting on my leg.
I believe that they should be working the cotton fields.
Not only are you spitting on my leg, but you're spitting on my intelligence by sputtering that.
I apologize to anyone.
That's the alcohol, folks.
So I'm from a different generation.
I'd like to. No. I think in a society where we have the need to quantify and kind of qualify everything, we do need to have an environment where certain words. So, like the N-word, nigger, nigga, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's hyphenated as a word, and I think it's appropriate in the context of like broadcasting and news. We can't just say that word on the air. It's offensive. It has connotations that aren't appropriate. But, for example, I remember not terribly recently, but recently enough that there was talks about the book Tom Sawyer, which was published by Mark Twain.
Mark
Tom Sawyer. There were talks about republishing.
No, Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
Yeah.
He wrote Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, and all that.
Oh
shit.
yeah,
right. There were talks about having the N-word removed from the books, and I just think that's a terrible
wrong.
Yeah, it's a terrible disservice to history. it's basically erasing, it's fabricating history to a degree that we don't agree in our modern context with that word, the N-word. So we feel a need to move backwards and kind of erase it. I think that's totally immoral. I don't think it's politically correct because in the context that book was written, the N-word is incredibly, it's, I mean, I don't know, it's intrinsic to the narrative. It's something that you can't, so what, I don't imagine how they could censor that word in the book. Like, I don't know if they would just say, like, oh, damn it, blank Joe on the fucking river raft.
I agree. In the context of such a text where the use of the word not only signifies the time and is historically accurate towards the times, as well as to better portray a character of the nature the characters that use it.
Right.
It shouldn't be stricken. I think children.
It's relevant to the history of the book.
It's absolutely relevant. As is. Do I think that perhaps maybe before you have children read it, maybe consult with parents, like
there should
look, we're going to be reading this book.
There's some measure of censorship involved, but not to the extent that we're removing it from a historical context, which I think is actually bordering on kind of controlism or like
I agree. I think that the the teacher should preface, there is a word which was used in the times to mean a certain thing that has a certain contextual connotation and validity in the text. However, because although we are using it in the classroom, does not necessarily mean that it is acceptable to use this term at any point in the classroom.
Right. That's critical. That if children think they can read it in a book and then just like, hey, nigga, what's up? It's like, all right.
Absolutely.
Like, If I think a kid should, like, if they have to read an excerpt from the book and it involves the N-word, I think the child should be like, and then, the plantation owner said, nigga, whatever. Mm-hmm. That should be appropriate in an academic, scholarly setting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, if the child takes that onto the playground and starts throwing her like, "Hey, nigga, throw the kickball my direction," it's like, no, all right, let's take a step back. Like, that's not appropriate to the playground. That's not appropriate to the
situation.
Right. Now that might be difficult. I don't know. I can't imagine children past, lower than the grade of 6th grade are reading this book. Shame on the teachers if they have them reading such sensitive material as that. When I was in 6th grade, I was reading pretty sensitive material. I was reading, the little girl in Japan that got, leukemia because of the A-bombs that were dropped. And I don't want to butcher her name, but it was like Sodaku. Oh, no, that's like a...
but essentially, it was you were reading something.
Right. It was sensitive, and
I don't imagine that there is any need to educate. What's it called?
But I was probably in like 5th or 6th grade when that book was dropped, and we were probably at the maturity level where we knew better than to like joke about sensitive issues like that. So I don't think anyone past the grade, like lower than the grade of 5th or 6th grade, should be reading something as a sensitive historical book like Tom Sawyer or
I agree. And if I could actually maybe I'm not necessarily move. I'm just gonna say it. Fuck it. I'm not gonna ask your permission. Fuck you.
Okay.
Because you're Hispanic. No.
Thank you.
But so here's the deal. I think that in the same way that we don't censor the atrocities in the Anne Frank diaries, in terms of what the Nazis did to not only the Jews, but many people, in the sense that we don't, that we have history textbooks with the Nazi flag in them and with all those things. I don't think that we should censor out a specific injustice to a certain people because we find a word that was commonly used to be offensive. We find there are people who find the what's it called, the swastika, to be offensive in that context, and sure, it is.
Context is critical because...
If I could say it, the context is really the point we're kind of making.
Right, because...
PC in context. Thank you so much for watching. No, there's more we actually want to do.
Context, no, absolutely. If you open a history book and you see the swastika, I don't think you should be immediately swelled with offense. I think you should view it as, like, for example, when I open a history book and I see a swastika and I see stats about World War II or the Holocaust or whatever, I'm immediately like, okay, I understand this in a historical context. I mean, I don't even have to think about it, really. I'm just like, okay, Nazis, like Germany, 1943, whatever, 1939, the Blitzkrieg, whatever. I view that, I see that, and I understand it purely through historical context. Now, if I'm, in downtown Nashua and I'm just walking down the street and I see a dude with his shirt off and he's got a swastika, like, tattooed on his shoulder, I'm going to be a little, like, intimidated. I'm going to be a little like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, is this guy... Did this guy just leave occupied Germany? Like,
I'm very not. And if I could interject here,
okay, go
there
ahead.
is the context of the direction of the swastika, and its meaning.
True. Correct, because the swastika is actually derived from an Indian, like
a Hindu.
A Hindu symbol.
Not only Hindu, it's in many religious cultures.
Yeah, it's a harvest.
It's a harvest symbol. I was watching a YouTube video of I believe is it Punjab or Punjabi?
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it's Punjab. But anyways, a traditional style of Indian dance, of a certain Indian culture, or subculture, whatever you want to call it, dance, where one of the guys in the music video is wearing a shirt with the big orange swastika on it. He's wearing a black shirt with a big orange swastika on it. And I saw it, and it annoyed me on a personal level that as soon as I saw that, I instantly thought Nazis.
It annoyed you.
It annoyed me that
About you.
That I instantly thought that. That was the go-to, because I have been culturally uneducated of the alternative meanings.
Well, conditioned. You've been conditioned.
What did I say?
I don't know.
Conditioned. You're right. Conditioned to believe that the symbol only means this, and it's not what it only means. And in that culture, it is a very powerful symbol of the harvest, the prosperity, I believe.
Right.
And so this guy is just wearing one of his religious symbols.
But he was a Hindu.
He was Indian. Hindu is like a certain religion. I'm not really sure. But yeah, he was an Indian man wearing it. Now, if I saw a white man wearing this shirt, I will be, and again, I'm actually quite disappointed that I will instantly think, oh, this guy might be a Nazi. Whereas, so what I usually will try to do nowadays is to look, see the direction, and say, even if it is a white man, I could be like, perhaps this man is converted to this religion.
Right.
Or maybe he feels the need to take the Nazis' use of this symbol and adulteration of the symbol back.
Adulteration. That's a very... No, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I was actually done.
Well, no, I think symbols are very powerful, and I think that people have a tendency to allow symbols in their connotations and their certain context to kind of... They almost, like, react when they see... So, like, all these things now, words, really sensitive words we have in our culture now, like the word faggot or nigga or, any kind of word that has a kind of resonance to it, a kind of power. It's almost like in our 21st century cultural context, people almost like, they don't even have to think about the word. They just kind of react to the word, and they're almost immediately offended. And it's like, I almost feel like by being offended to that word, you're allowing it to have power over you. And like you're attributing this kind of power to a word that essentially is meaningless. It's essentially a collection of letters formed to create this word, but you're attributing a certain thought to it that the thought removed from your own feelings from it is essentially inert. It's essentially immobile. And I think like my strongest example about this is that if you carve the word nigger into a tree and left it there for 100 years, 200 years, maybe even 300 years, I don't know how old the fucking tree is going to be. Okay, so maybe the tree was a bad metaphor. A rock. If you carve it into a rock, 1,000 years from then, that word, it's just going to be a symbol of, it's just going to be like a collection of letters that nobody's really going to understand. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand how in a culture that is so tolerant and so like, or pretends to be so tolerant and pretends to be so like balanced, that they can hear a word like that and just immediately become emotionally triggered. Like it blows my mind that people are so sensitive to symbols and words and things. And it's not just words. It's like we were talking about guns a minute ago. We were talking about how the silhouette, like even like just like the dark outline of a handgun or a rifle, it's very emotionally triggering for some people. And it's essentially a gun is inert. It's immobile. It can't, without a trigger being pulled, it can't really do anything. But people have such emotional triggers or charges towards those symbols that they just react, and it's like, oh, okay, I can't deal with this, like, this is inappropriate, whatever. It's like, well, no, it's not really inappropriate, you're just having an emotional response to that, and you have to kind of acknowledge your emotional response to that, and you kind of have to realize whether your emotional response is appropriate or not, given the context that that symbol lies in. I don't know. Anyways, your thoughts on that?
If I could, to me, I think a lot of that comes from just this ideology around us where what we have to do is we have to speak out, we have to interject, and we have to. Yes. If we don't say anything, then it's sort of this ideology that if you don't say anything to the contrary, you're accepting it as right. Right. And
those who are voiceless are compliant.
Yeah. So, which is completely wrong in rape culture and such.
Rape culture is a whole other topic.
Whole other topic. I'm sure we'll talk about in another video thing stuff. Ponies.
Ponies.
So I think it's just people's instant react that they have to have an opinion. Their opinion has to be sold, and you have to stand on this side, or otherwise you're as bad as the person that killed someone. And it's a fucked
Wait,
up.
what? You're kind of jumping the gun a little bit with that.
I love how you keep saying it triggers this response. You just jump the gun. I love all this word.
Well, no, I didn't understand what. No. Go ahead.
It's sort of,
maybe you're right. You might have a point.
This acceptance, or if you say that gun, if you don't say anything, then you're saying that guns are okay and completely fine to have, and there's nothing wrong done with guns. I feel like is this ideology that it's not just this generation. It's people alive today have this ideology, or I perceive it as having this ideology that's what silence means is yes to
compliance,
everything.
Yeah.
Exactly, what you've just said. And so what I'm saying is, if you don't say something, people almost see you as being as bad as someone who killed someone. Like,
right.
Use that.
I understand what you mean now. Thank you for the context.
They see you at the worst, is what I'm saying. And it could just be that maybe you don't want to talk about this thing because you understand that people aren't going to be rational and or maybe are undereducated, or perhaps you're undereducated. I find a lot of the times I don't speak up on opinions of matters when it comes to certain things because I know that what will happen is I might say something, and then someone else will be far more educated and be able to pull up statistics and whatnot, and essentially
it invalidates your opinion, which is. No,
it invalidates my stance, which then they might go on and be like, oh, pro-gun people are completely uneducated. I've talked to so many pro-gun people and they don't even know the facts. And I might because I don't know the facts doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion.
Right.
I think I should become more educated if I'm going to have a discussion with someone and I want to be on level terms, because then I could be like, oh, I'm glad you brought up that statistic. Well, let's talk about this statistic which is related, and I can show you how you've misconstrued this statistic, misconstrued that statistic, in my opinion.
Which statistics are total
And
crap.
I actually strongly... My mom would bring up statistics all the time.
There's cherry-picking statistics. And there's,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They could bring up 100 statistics to their favor, and I couldn't bring up a single one
right.
To the counter.
But
and they would be like, aha, all studies show...
right.
And they could even know that they're not completely
if the statistic is cherry-picked, and if it's promoting a certain kind of... confirmation bias. If it's promoting a certain kind of bias or opinion about something... That's the whole problem with statistics, because everybody's looking for something when they compile statistics. It's not like raw data is raw data. Statistics are a kind of already, like, when I hear the word statistics, I already imagine some kind
Get
of...
offended? Do you? No.
Yeah, I'm so offended by statistics. Who could use such a vile word to describe data? No. But statistics, I kind of like I hear the word statistics, and it's like, okay, I'm going to remain objective and unbiased in my opinion. But statistics is almost... Statistics are kind of gathered with a kind of plan in place. Whereas data, I feel like raw data is an unbiased, objective opinion about certain issues or whatever. How do we get on the subject of statistics?
We're just talking about guns and arguments.
Guns,
and stuff.
right? Well,
yeah,
guns
so
are...
yeah, as you said, and people, but it's. So let's bring it back to political correctness.
Yes.
Because I did mention the fact that I will sometimes leave my opinion out of the fact, but I have platforms such as this podcast too. Although I am, again, not particularly well educated on both sides of the matter, I have an opinion. I can share that opinion. I think people should be free to share their opinions and not be doing that with my airsoft gun in the middle, because you can see the spikes and sound there. Hey, yeah, it's real annoying.
It's an all metal steel BB airsoft gun, but it sounds very realistic on audio. So
I imagine, but
it's pretty cool.
So political correctness, I was going somewhere, but I've forgotten. Is there something you would like to say, Steve?
About political...
If that is your real name.
I haven't come up with an alias for these podcasts. You're CJ Sketch, I'm just Steve for the time being. Until I come up with a cooler name, I guess I'm just stuck with Steve.
Are you...
I wish Tom were here.
Because... Are you saying that your parents didn't choose a good name for you?
No, that's not what I'm implying at all. Okay. I'm implying I didn't choose a good alias for myself to go on the air. So
I
wish Tom were here because he's definitely the more like left orientated between the three of us, and he would kind of offer a little bit more balance in the perspective. I feel like he'd be agreeing with
particular matter. Yeah.
Right. I think he'd be agreeing with a lot of what we have to say, but he would definitely have some more poignant
poignant or poignant?
Whatever.
Poignant?
How do you...
Poignant.
Poignant, whatever.
Poignant.
Poignant. So, you want to talk about context and political correctness? Here we go, being racially insensitive.
So you know that we have a language within the writing and such, and I say our because you are part of the group.
I proposed that we have our own language.
Yeah. But I have a tattoo on my body, so...
That's correct.
And, so...
I haven't made that commitment yet.
The point is, as I develop, and Tom and I develop the language further than the few situation or words that we came up with, my purpose of developing it is to sound like a mix of an Asian and Germanic sounds. So you have, like, hard and and such, as well as like Jacques Sui sounds.
Jacques Sui
sounds a little bit more Asian and stuff. But the point is, let's talk about the N word. Nigga.
Do we want to go back to that?
Nigger. Or do you want to talk about faggot? We could talk about retard.
That's another word we didn't bring up is retard. Because
Yes, I had some gripes about
You
retard.
did. You. I'd like to. Let's discuss that, and if we could kind of get some air circulating in here because it is quite.
That's gonna cause a hum.
All right. If we could maybe open the door,
Yeah,
potentially,
sure, I can do that.
just get some air circulation happening, and if I could get another drink,
Sure.
just a sprig of the old. That was loud.
Sure it was. Catch it, please. I knew you were gonna catch it. So, the word retard.
Yeah. So we're back. Drinks refreshed. The
Being
sensitive
refreshed.
word. The topic is political correctness, and the buzzword, the sensitive word right now,
Is retard.
Is retard. Yeah.
So, again, this is as far as my knowledge is to understand. I want to preface this again. The history of the word retard comes from retardant and retard are terms that, and actually, you know what, I'm going to look up the actual definitions here.
Well, it means to slow, doesn't it?
Well, that's, again, we had a little slight differences in the opinion. So we put retard into definition. Here we go. Yeah, delay or hold back in terms of progress, development, or accomplishment.
Yeah.
So, if something retards something, it slows it down or delay, and hold back.
Retardant, yeah.
So when someone,
That's how I learned the word retard. Was
I guess
a fire
maybe perhaps-
retardant, something
yeah.
that dulls a fire.
So I guess perhaps the term mentally retarded is, I guess, mentally delayed or held back. It is accurate in terms of the way it was used as a medical term. But what happened is that you have this word that is used as part of a medical definition to, what am I trying to say? That is used as part of a medical definition to
Clinical.
a clinical medical definition to signify a certain group of people with a certain
Disability.
disability or handicap.
Handicap. A good word. Handicap.
Or something. I don't want to say wrong. That seems inappropriate.
Retard definitely has a negative connotation to it.
It does. Because what happened was someone took that to say it means slow or delayed is like to say that someone is being retarded about something, like when someone's like I used to use it in the context back in school, and I often got don't use that term. Was when someone was being stupid. So when we were playing a game and like maybe someone was not understanding the rules, or would be like, "What are you, retarded? Like, are you not able to understand what we're saying?" Like, but it was very negative and whatnot, and it is an unfortunate situation where that term, which was also used as a clinical classification of people, was then taken as and used as an insult.
Right.
Unfortunate. But to then say that it's offensive to this group of people, I think it could be offensive to them, but to say that it is intended to say to offend is completely wrong. And I think
Right.
it's the way it was used as an insult is a legitimate and maybe not acceptable, because insults aren't particularly acceptable, but it was a legitimate use of the word. It was meant to say someone who was slowed or held back in understanding
Yes.
of concepts or of situations. And that's sort of my opinion. And what happened was you had, if I remember correctly, you had two teams of people that wanted to own the word and have the word only mean this one thing. And then you had the group, which I believe were sort of, I would say, the winners of the situation, which were to change the classification of the handicap to mentally handicapped or mentally disabled. which I think was the right way to do it.
Sorry, I'm texting.
No, it's completely alright. It's fucking 3:23 in the morning, and somehow you're texting people. Who are you talking to?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'm not worrying about it. I'm a little worried about it.
We'll
Pouring
talk.
myself a drink. But you seem to have some opinions on what I'm saying.
That's your out.
There's very little left of this.
Why don't
Have
you
a last
finish
sip.
that glass?
Have a last sip.
You want me to have a last sip?
Please, sir.
All right.
Cheers to friendship,
And
whiskey,
and political correctness.
and PCness.
Fuck PCness. But anyways. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Daddy. Oh yeah.
All right, now it sounds like we're filming a porn. So if you would be so kind as to...
The word retard? What were we talking about?
Yeah, is what we're talking. We're talking about the word retard.
Yeah. So the word retard, it inherently has a negative connotation. I think you brought this up before the microphone was live, but people who are mentally handicapped, I don't view them as retarded. When I see somebody who has a developmental issue, I don't think that kid's a fucking retard. It's more like, no, okay, that person has developmental issues. The word retard is completely removed from that context. So I feel like it's almost appropriate to use the word when you're describing somebody like slow or dumb or like being an idiot. Somebody's being the words idiot and moron have roots in actually like clinical, like basic terminology. Mm-hmm. In our 21st century context, they've become something totally removed from that. Now, like when you prescribe somebody or when you designate them as some kind of diagnose. Thank you. You don't use those words because
Absolutely.
So the word retard, I wouldn't. It belongs in its own category of words. Now it's a sensitive word. I wouldn't just go throwing it around willy-nilly. In the correct company, if the context is appropriate, I might use the word, hey, you're being a retard, cut it out. Yeah, I understand in our 21st century context, it is a sensitive word. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Fine.
keep saying 21st century, which is really dating these podcasts. I'd like people in the future to listen to these podcasts and be like, oh, it's so relevant. But then they'll be like, 21st century, those are a bunch of retards.
People in the 24th century are not going to be talking about this issue, I guarantee it. I hope they aren't.
That's what I'm saying. I hope they aren't.
Because if they still are, then we have a lot of work to do. Fucking people are being pussies. Let's get over this, people. Words, symbols, stop attributing your emotions to a certain word. I was sitting with a young woman, and I mentioned that in a past conversation with somebody I used the word faggot, and she immediately became jaded in her opinion. And I didn't mean the word faggot. It's a harsh word. It's a harsh word. But I didn't mean it in the context of a homosexual. I meant those guys are being lame. They're being, they're being antisocial. They're being, like, lame. Forget them. But the way this person's emotions were triggered immediately from that word, it's just like, by allowing that word to control your emotions so vigorously, you're attributing this kind of power that the word would lose. The word would lose that kind of sway over people if you just let it go. If you just let it be a word. If you let it be a sequence of letters. Let it go.
Let it be.
Let it go.
Whisper words, let it be. Anyways,
I
agree.
That was strange.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Right. Now, when I say that word, I don't, and I'm refraining from using it now because it is a harsh word. But feelings aside, it is a word. It is really just a sequence of letters in your mind that you construct to be something that harsh and negative. So, okay, the word faggot. It has origins in Nazi Germany where they would put homosexuals, it was a joke. They would put homosexuals into the ovens. They would burn them. They'd incinerate them, and they would.
Burning people is a joke?
Huh?
Or the term was a joke, or burning people?
To the Nazis, it was a joke. They're like, oh, it's like a bunch of, it's like a kindling of faggots in the oven. So that's where the word faggot has its kind of like connotation. So there is a hatred charge with that word
and its relation to homosexuals.
But if you don't know the origin of that word, right? If you don't know the origin of that, and you just say it, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's ignorant of you. Maybe you should educate yourself. I'm not gonna get into that conversation, but it does have an original meaning. A faggot is just a bundle of sticks that was used as kindling, and you can look at that in the English dictionary, and it'll still. There's the faggot, which is the American English iteration of that word, which means it's a derogatory term for a homosexual. And then there's the fagot word that derives from British English, which is actually just a bundle of sticks. They still use. I don't know if they still use it as slang over there for like a cigarette. I remember like from hearing way back in the day. Oh, like fag is just a cigarette. Like, so I'm assuming like this comes from some kind of language of like burning things or like a burning like
There's
a stick
like
a stick like like a cigarette and a bundle of sticks.
I'm sure it comes
and
from
then
there.
Unfortunately for history, in the context of history, the Nazis took that to mean specifically a gay person.
It's the Nazis' fault. Interesting.
Yeah, the Nazis ruined a lot of shit for us, like swastikas and lovely gray uniforms. And,
basically, lovely gray
uniforms. And small trim,
mustaches around the don't go past your
unfortunately,
nasal cavities.
but like they're Nazis. Fuck them. Like they're goofy. Like haha, you stupid Nazis. You fucked everything up for everybody. But
I am on the keyboard. Sorry, that was doing
wonderful.
If I could
go ahead, please take
the terms we are using are harsh. They are negative terms.
I wouldn't recommend using these terms in your day-to-day speech.
Yeah, be
respectful. Don't be a dick. Like, understand the sensitivity of these words. But at the same time, let's not be afraid of a historical context. Like, if you're speaking academically about the word faggot or about the word nigger, use the word. Don't be a shy bastard and shy away from these words. The symbolism, because... Well, go ahead. I totally dethroned you from that.
Sorry. My point is that these are harsh words, and there are contexts in which they're acceptable. As anything that is negative, you shouldn't be throwing around
like shit or fuck or
any of these terms that have negative connotations aren't to be thrown around carelessly.
Yes,
rather to be used contextually responsibly. Absolutely.
Yes.
So drink responsibly.
Yes.
And use your.
I'm not driving anywhere tonight.
It's true. Why you're like yelling at the mic like a drunk person? I'm seeing you over here, and you're just like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, just the way you're acting towards the mic is quite interesting.
My ass is anchored firmly to the sofa.
Yeah. Do you have any other points to make, sir?
I'm sure there's a few. We had an interesting conversation about how sex corrupts everything, but
I don't feel like that's completely.
No, I think there's a couple points to be elaborated there.
We seem to be talking about words mostly here.
Right, the context of words. No, I think we covered most of that. Yeah. I think at this point, anything reiterated at this point would just be beating a dead horse. Yeah, redundant. Do we want to talk about like? I mentioned offhand that sex has corruptive influence. Uh-huh. I don't know.
I mean, is that related to political correctness? Is the question, I guess.
No, but there's other topics we can discuss. It doesn't have to be political.
I guess it doesn't have to be. So sex.
Sex. Sex is a wonderful thing. It's
natural.
It's natural. It's therapeutic. It's sexy. God damn it.
Sometimes it's sexy. Sometimes it can be quite.
Sometimes it's kind of dirty, and you feel guilty afterwards. If that happens, then maybe you're doing sex right. I don't know.
Yeah. Very right. If you feel very dirty.
But I mentioned offhand to CJ Sketch here. I mentioned that sex has corruptive, and when I say corruptive, I mean like corruptive powers. It can kind of influence. Okay, you all set with that, or are you just gonna keep? Yeah. Sorry. It does have. So, aside, I feel like I was having a conversation with a gentleman, relatively recently, and everything was going great in his life. He had a very productive, scholastic or academic. He was going into grad school. He had a very productive, but he really was hankered down. He was really bunkered down by this like. I just haven't had a sexual relationship in a couple years. And I said, I'm sorry. That's really harsh. But in the same breath, I was kind of like, what the fuck? You have there's a lot of stuff going on in your life that's very productive. It's very progressive. And you're being held back by your sexual desires. And are you going to return the microphone? Or are you just going to
I am.
Okay, all right. Sorry, no. Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure what was happening if I was just taking over for you. So I guess and this individual and how his desires and his there was we're going to get a little involved here, but whatever. I could tell he was manifesting his and I'm speaking from a position of I'm kind of assuming here. I'm kind of being a little subjective, but this is just my point of view. And he was directing a lot of his sexual desires onto one of my friends, and her sexuality. And I didn't feel that was quite appropriate for him. I didn't feel it was fair to her that he was kind of manifesting his desires onto her. But regardless, he left for grad school. I'm sure he's being successful in what he does. He is a successful person. But it made me pause. It made me reflect on how certain individuals, our desire for copulation, our desire for reciprocation of skin and contact, it really has a dampering effect on our long-term goals. And that's speaking to we're mammals. We have desires that we want to. Our long-term goals as mammals is to procreate, is to reproduce. But as sentient human beings, we have the ability to kind of look past that and say okay, what do we need as individuals? What do I need as an individual? If you'd like to take the floor.
Sorry. Please. No, I agree. But I just wanted to make a quick point. Could it be that perhaps, as you said, the particular person, I think I do know who you're talking about. We're of course not going to name any names, but could it be that perhaps the gentleman in question is a successful person and has achieved success in all other, or at least most other aspects of his life, but not in this aspect, and so rather than being that this is the overpowering and the topping of everything that is on his brain or on his desires, that it's all that's left. So what seems to be the only thing he cares about, or the only thing that he wants or has problems with, is more of the only thing he has problems with left. If that makes any sense. I feel like I had a point to make more often. Did you seriously just go over there to flatulate into the hallway towards my bedroom where I'll be sleeping, sir?
Well, yeah, I didn't think it was appropriate to do it
well,
on the microphone.
No, you're right.
Should I have just bent ass over the microphone and just ripped
Please don't use the term ass. That's actually very offensive to my people.
Shut the fuck up, you piece of shit.
But no, could it be that this was his only failure, and so
Okay, I can't speak for this individual. But I don't think so. I think this individual has a lot of self-actualization to do. And I don't know what he's capable of as a grad student. I think from what his achievements I've been told, he's tremendous in his field. He's excellent in his field. but he's allowing his desires to kind of, like, the first thing when he you know, went into grad school, the first thing he came back about was like, I'm really, you know, lonely. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're in a foreign place for grad school. You don't have any, like, natural friends. Your classes are just beginning, whatever. But really, the only thing on your mind is that, like, you haven't gotten any in a little while. Like, I just don't think your priorities are totally straight. I mean...
So he's gay is what you're getting up to getting.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Sorry.
totally. Like, he loves the dick.
No.
He slays asshole and the penis.
He slays asshole. That was quite a bit. So back to seriousness, though. I kind of, as someone who went through a similar situation, I feel like I've come out on the other side. I haven't known this particular person as long as you have, and I
probably not as long as I have. No.
But the point is, it used to be the same way about me. Like, I
used to weigh heavily on you.
Yeah, the want and the need to be not only sexually intimate but emotionally intimate with someone was very much the only thing on my mind. No matter how much success, I mean, back in high school, I achieved honor roll. I was successful in many aspects of my life. However, the fact that I was not getting laid was the only thing I cared about. Sex was the only thing I cared about. Being with someone was the only thing I cared about. And it's wow. Wow. Just in the middle of...
Sorry.
No, but the point is, it's...
I was looking for the spike.
It can be... My only thing is, we're talking about this individual in the past couple of years. That you
within the last year.
Okay, so knowing...
Maybe year and a half.
Year and a half. So knowing the gentleman who we're talking about and knowing his age, I would say that age isn't a great factor, but I would go so far as to say that in his maybe developmental, or in his development as a person, he should have, at this point, gotten over that. I see it as more of a phase. I've seen a lot of my friends go through a similar phase. Going through a similar phase.
I don't judge anybody for their phases. Everybody has a phase where they need them as a person. I don't judge him for that. What I'm holding, the criteria I'm holding him to is that I almost feel like he's been through that phase, but just from loose conversations I've had with him, that he's been through that phase. I can't speak for him. Maybe I'm being a shitty person or a shitty friend for holding him to that kind of you know, not standard's a harsh word, but that kind of expectation of him. I can't really speak for that.
So I've spoken a lot tonight about talking to friends and pushing certain things. What I might say is perhaps this individual is stuck in the phase, is unsure of how to get out, or might need the help of a friend or of a group of friends to better understand that, look, this life isn't about this. Look, I mean, you should look at all of your successes and see that, yes, you may have not achieved as much success. I'm sure he's achieved a certain amount of success in the field of sex and emotions and whatnot, but to say that this one lack of accomplishment or not as good of accomplishment should be controlling.
Where's the time
of his life? The time's up here.
No, that I see. Yeah, that time, like,
this is measured in bars. But the point is, don't worry about it. We're about 42 to 45 minutes in, and we should actually be wrapping this up relatively soon. I don't want to go over an hour. We should, once we get near about 50, we should wrap it up, really.
Cool.
But the point is that he may need help.
I think so.
In realizing that, hey, maybe you haven't noticed, because sometimes you don't notice when you're...
Right.
You're in that
situation. And I don't think his closest friend at this point is offering him that kind of help. I don't know how...
I would go so far as to say that person is perhaps in a similar boat.
Potentially. But at the same time, it kind of, from a more outside perspective where I am this person's friend, but I'm not as strong connectedly to this I'm not as strongly connected to this person as, other people. Mm-hmm. They might not take my opinion as valid because I haven't had the same experiences. And that's a dangerous perspective, in my opinion, I think, is like when you see somebody who hasn't had the same experiences as you, you kind of dismiss their perspective almost immediately. And that's kind of dangerous. But I won't put that person in that kind of boat right now. But I would approach them and just say, look, you have these things happening in your life which are very, great for your future. I wouldn't let this kind of thing hold you back where you're desiring of certain, company or whatever. Does that answer the question? Did I...
Really, as I walked away, man?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember the question.
I think. Yes, I think that answered the question because I don't remember it either.
Because I don't remember it either. Let's rewind.
No, we can't.
I know. I'm just.
But
So, actually, to bring us back, so if we didn't totally answer that question for you, the corruptive powers of sex. And, there's a big story behind this because what actually motivated this question for me is pretty tremendous. My own personal experience. I was hurt by a certain...
Let's maybe not harp on that quite yet. Let's wait a little bit.
What, you want to make another podcast for that?
I'd prefer to have another podcast for that so as to...
But then if we have
you in a better state of mind...
It might not be even relevant at that point. It might be a week or 3 weeks from now, and I might not...
The point is, I don't want you to be in a bitter state of mind and to perhaps make judgments or comments that you don't...
Whatever I feel now, I'm going to feel 3 weeks from now.
So, we'll talk about it then. The point is...
All right.
That
What motivated this perspective, the corruptive influence of sex, is a own personal experience of mine. Very close to home. Me, my heart, my soul, my genitals. They were offended.
Yep.
And political correctness, offensive. That's offensive. But no, I that's what motivated this kind of. And then there's a whole world of conversation we didn't have about this individual's kind of desires about another individual. It's totally this person's all right. So I'll just speak briefly about this, but this person's perspective about another friend of mine is totally influenced by his sexual desires towards her, and I have my own opinion about that, but we won't get too deep into that because it's running late and it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and we weren't gonna go over an hour, so.
Which is why I feel like we should have another podcast related.
Yes, I don't know when that's gonna happen.
Who knows, man? It could happen tomorrow morning.
It could happen tomorrow morning. Whatever. Let's do it tomorrow morning. Sure. Okay,
so I think if you could make a quick point about sexual desires, just so that's wrapped.
All right, so yeah, if you have a libido, there's nothing wrong to have a libido. It's natural. We're all humans. We all want to procreate. Whatever. Don't let it corrupt or don't let it tremendously influence your emotions. I mean, that's kind of hypocritical or whatever of me to say, but don't let it totally take over your logic or your thoughts of judgment or whatever. You see a lot of movies about people like, oh, I love him. It's like, all right, let's relax. Let's use our fucking prefrontal cortex and let's figure out what the fuck is going on. Don't allow your libido to overpower everything in your body. Yes, when it's appropriate, yes, absolutely, let it take over. Let it just, pile drive your significant other into oblivion. And in the words of Rajesh Kuthrapali, pile drive her into oblivion.
I didn't know this term much.
Yeah.
If I could be so...
Go ahead.
So, yeah, wrapped up point would be sex should not be the front runner, or I guess the front basilisk. I'm trying to using analogies. If you're
the front basilisk, it should not be the Neil Armstrong of. The Lance Armstrong. I'm fucking up my Armstrongs.
The point is, it shouldn't be what drives you as a person in your life, but it shouldn't not be
It should be a motivating factor, but it shouldn't be the motivating
exactly.
factor. Yes.
Wrap up thoughts on political correctness, if you could.
Political correctness. Don't be an idiot. If somebody uses the word, don't be immediately offended by it. Just like understand where they're coming from and be like, okay, you know, that maybe the context you use that word, it wasn't entirely appropriate, but let's discuss the word. Just allow conversations to happen. Don't be so close-minded. They're like, oh, he used that word. I can't fucking talk to him about that. Like, oh, he said the word faggot. He said the word nigger. Like, oh, I can't fucking talk to him. Just like, if he's being a dickhole about it and he said like, oh, that fucking faggot or that fucking nigger, like, all right, dismiss that person. He's an idiot. But if he's using it in the correct contexts, have the conversation. Have a progressive, gradual conversation about that word. And maybe you both can reach a mutual understanding about certain words or certain symbols. But allow it to happen. Don't be closed-minded. That's my opinion on political correctness.
Okay. My wrap-up opinion would be exactly the same, essentially, which is to context is everything. Negative words have the negative connotations and, of course, should not be taken lightly. Essentially exactly what you said. I actually am going to say I would like to either have you involved or maybe we'll just do it with Tom or I'm not sure what we'll do, but I would actually like to have you involved in a podcast about the power of words because I do have a context of words and I have an idea. The point is, thank you so much for listening. This has been Drinking Thoughts with me, CJ Sketch, as well as guest star Steve. Tom is out. Fuck Tom. And
fuck Tom.
Please
I wish Tom were here, but fuck Tom.
Please subscribe to the channel if you like these podcasts. Please tell us in the comments below. Tell us what you think about political correctnesses, because we're not going to be like that one people's videos we watched, and we're not going to disable the comments because, you know, discussion is important.
We want a progressive forum about these topics.
You will be blocked or just
discontinued
if you're being uneducated and sort of rowdy about it.
Don't be retarded.
Don't be retarded. All right. Thank you so much for watching.
In a more political correctness, don't be an asshole. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.